I'd like to call to order the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Would everyone please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to everyone attending this evening, as well as those who will be watching the recording. All board members are present, except for our student board members this evening. We will start off with a ceremonial oath of office. Ms. Gutierrez and Ms. Pryor have already been sworn in after their election, but we will have a ceremonial oath. So if you two could join me out front, we will have a ceremonial oath of office.
Where you want us?
Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay.
So we're kind of by the microphone. All right. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Board of Education
of the Office of Board of Education
of Milan Area Schools,
of Milan Area Schools,
Washtenaw and Monroe Counties, Michigan,
Washtenaw and Monroe Counties, Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
All right, congratulations. Yeah.
I think last time you gave me today.
There's a little memorization there. All right, we do have, this is one of our organizational meetings. We have one here and then one in July, June. So this one, we got quite a few things to vote on. One of the things that we do is election of officers. So right now I'm acting as the leader of the meeting, and Ms. Heike is taking minutes. But we will start with, are there any nominations for president? It doesn't need to be seconded at this time. It's just, are there any nominations for president?
Mr. Sislo,
Yeah, Mr. Farrell.
I'd like to nominate Andrew Sislo for president.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for president? All right, now I need a motion to elect Andrew Sislo for president of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term.
Motion by Pryor. Support by Gutierrez.
So I'm moved and supported to elect Andrew Sislo for president of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term. Ms. Heike.
Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, next I will accept nominations for vice president.
Mr. Sislo.
Yeah.
I
Ms. Pryor.
nominate Tom Farrell.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? All right, now I need a motion to elect Tom Farrell for vice president of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Burdette.
So moved and supported to elect Tom Farrell for vice president of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term. Ms. Heike.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Next, I need a nominations for secretary.
Mr. Sislo,
Yeah, Mr. Farrell.
I nominate Sarah Murray.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for secretary? All right, now I need a motion to elect Sarah Murray for the secretary of Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Heike.
It's been moved and supported to elect Sarah Murray for Secretary of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term. Ms. Heika.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Pryor.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Burdette.
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Now I will accept nominations for treasurer.
Mr. Sislo,
Yes, Mr. Farrow.
I nominate Michelle Heika for treasurer.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? All right. Now I need a motion to elect Michelle Heika for treasurer of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term.
So moved by Murray.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved and supported to elect Michelle Heika for treasurer of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term.
Heika, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Pryor.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Burdette.
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Um, will you continue to take minutes then? I guess I forgot. All right.
There we go.
All right, there we go.
Happy
So,
to pass on the torch.
all right, Miss Murray will be. I will refer to Miss Murray now for our roll call. All right. Next, we need to consider our appointment for representatives to the Washtenaw Area School Board and the Learning Network. Right now, Ms. Gutierrez serves as our WASB rep, and Ms. Pryor serves as our Legislative Relations Network representative. Would you like to continue in those roles?
Mr. Sisler, I'm happy to continue in that role.
I'm also happy to continue.
All right. Any other interest or? All right. So I need a motion to approve the appointments for Washtenaw School Board Association representative to Ms. Gutierrez and Legislative Relations Network representative to be Ms. Pryor.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by
Burdette.
So I have moved by Farrow and support by Burdette. All right. To approve the appointments of Washington Area School Board Association representative is Carrie Gutierrez and Legislative Relations Network representative is Cassie Pryor. Ms. Murray.
Murray, yes. Pryor.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Burdette.
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika.
Yes.
And motion carries 7-0.
All right. Excellent. All right. I'm just going to present the board committee assignments that we'll have for the next year. So for our academics and programs committee, it's going to be chaired by Ms. Gutierrez, and then the members will be myself and Ms. Pryor. Our learning environment and culture committee, also the committee that reviews our policy, will be chaired by Ms. Pryor and have the members of Ms. Heika and Ms. Murray. The communications committee will be chaired by Ms. Murray, and the members will be Mr. Burdette and myself. The personnel committee will be chaired by myself, and then the other members are Mr. Farrow and Ms. Gutierrez. And then our finance committee, buildings and grounds, will be chaired by Ms. Heika, and those members will be Mr. Burdette and Mr. Farrow. So we will update the website accordingly, but those will be the committee assignments for 2025. All right, the next thing that we wanted to talk about was our Big Red Board Chats. So this is something that we did a long time in the past. They were suspended. We brought them back where we set up quarterly meetings in the district for our stakeholders to come and talk with board members in a more informal setting, so that you could talk to at least 3 board members, so that we're not violating the Open Meetings Act. And we like to set these up quarterly. In the past, we rotated them throughout each school, like Paddock, Simons, the middle school, and the high school. What we found is Simons is usually the best place just because of the way the auditorium's set up. In the high school, we did it in the cafeteria, and it was kind of loud. There's not really an auditorium at Paddock, so the cafeteria was that's where we met. And then the middle school has the auditorium, but just with parking and everything and the attendance, Simons seems to be the best place to hold those big red board chats. So we're going to have those. They'll all be at Simons. We actually have one coming up Wednesday, January. Make sure I got the right date. Wednesday, January 22nd. So that one's going to be specifically in regards to the superintendent selection and the process. So that one will be it'll be me, Mr. Farrow, and Ms. Gutierrez as the personnel committee. So that's the topic at that January meeting. Ms. Pryor did go through and looked at some future dates for us. So we're going to set those now. They may change pending on other activities or such, but we're looking at Tuesday, March 4th. Thursday, May 8th, Tuesday, September 23rd, and Thursday, November 13th. So, and all those would be held at Simons from 6:30 to 8, and those will be on the website as well, and then also communicated by Mr. Gearbaugh and obviously the new superintendent for September and November once we get closer to those dates. So we'll make assignments for who can attend those, but we want to get those at least on the calendar to start with. The next order of business that I wanted to talk about was our code of ethics. So it's something we do have a code of ethics. It's attachment A in the board pack. This is something it's been in our operating policies, but when we went through and did our self-evaluation, it was one of the things that we scored low on as far as being aware of it. I think just with new board members and such, making sure that we're all aware of the code of ethics and where that's at and what's on the code of ethics. I'm just going to go ahead and read through it. It's a one pager, so it's not too bad. But it's just good that everybody knows what we're holding ourselves to. So as members of the Milan School District Board of Trustees, we realized that to be the most effective advocates for children, we as a board must function as a team and at all times treat each other and the people we serve with the utmost courtesy, dignity, respect, and professionalism. Should we, for whatever reason, fail to follow these guidelines, we ask that our fellow board members call it to our attention. Should that occur, we pledge to accept the feedback without anger or retribution and to renew our efforts to follow this code of conduct and the board operating procedures. We shall promote the best interests of the school district as a whole, and to that end, we shall adhere to the following educational and ethical standards. As members of the Board of Education, board members will strive to improve public education, and to that end, they will attend all regularly scheduled board meetings insofar as possible and become informed concerning the issues to be considered at those meetings. Number 2, recognize that they should endeavor to make policy decisions only after full discussion at publicly held board meetings. Number 3, render all decisions based on the available facts and independent judgment and refuse to surrender that judgment to individuals or special interest groups. Number 4, encourage the free expression of opinion by all board members and seek systematic communications between the board and students and staff and all elements of the community. Number 5, to work with other board members to establish effective board policies and to delegate authority for the administration of the district to the superintendent. Number 6, communicate to other board members and the superintendent expressions of public reaction to board policies and school programs. Number 7, inform themselves about current educational issues by individual study and through participation in programs providing needed information such as those sponsored by the state and national board associations. Number 8, support the employment of those persons best qualified to serve as school staff and insist on regular and impartial evaluation of all staff. Number 9, avoid being placed in a position of conflict of interest and refrain from using their board positions for personal partisan gain. And 10, take no private action that will compromise the board or administration and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law. And finally, number 11, remember always that their first and greatest concern must be for the educational welfare of the students attending public schools. So that's our code of conduct that we've adopted. I just would like to, I've read it so that we're aware of it, and I'd like a vote of affirmation to accept that code of ethics. So I will accept a motion to accept that code of ethics as included in attachment A and as I just read.
Moved by Heika.
Support by Pryor.
It's been moved and supported to accept the code of ethics as included as an attachment A. Is there any discussion? Ms.
Mr. Sisler?
Yeah, Ms. Gutierrez.
I'm really glad that we're doing this, and I think it is important that we reaffirm this every year. We had talked previously about having this printed out and hung in the boardroom somewhere. I think that that would be nice, that we see it and we constantly remember it and keep coming back to it. So I would request that we have it hung somewhere in the boardroom.
I think we can make that happen. Any other comments or questions? All right, it's been moved and supported to accept the code of ethics as included in attachment A. Ms. Murray.
Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. And motion carries 7-0.
All right, that takes care of all the organizational methods. Now we will move on to board recognitions, where it is School Board Recognition Month, and I will turn it over to Mr. Gearbaugh.
Across the country, including in the state of Michigan, January is School Board Recognition Month. And we do want to thank our local school board members for all of the time and attention that they put into the work that they do for the students and staff of Milan area schools. Tonight you'll see a few signs around the room kind of recognizing those efforts from the different buildings. Each of the board members also got a package of wonderful letters from students at Paddock. And I want to read a proclamation that was given by the governor. Whereas Michigan is home to nearly 600 locally elected local school boards that work to enrich the lives of Michigan students through education and directly influencing instruction in Michigan public schools, and whereas local school board members are exceptional public servants who have dedicated and committed themselves to this duty by governing school districts, listening to parent voices, and advancing student achievement and well-being in the schools and communities they serve. And whereas during this month, we join with the Michigan Association of School Boards, Michigan Department of Education, local school districts, and community organizations to recognize and raise awareness of the countless efforts and contributions of local school boards and school board members throughout Michigan. And therefore, Gretchen Whitmer, Governor of Michigan, does hereby proclaim January 2025 as School Board Recognition Month. I also just want to personally thank our school board members. They really do give a lot more time than people understand. It's more than just being at these meetings. There's a lot of research done to prepare for the meetings. There's classes that they attend. There's trainings that they go to. I don't know if they ever get an interrupted visit to Kroger or somewhere in town. And so, there really is a lot more than sometimes the eye sees. And it is a 6-year commitment, and we greatly appreciate all of the efforts that these folks here have put into Milan area schools. And we just want to genuinely thank them, and we would ask that our community members, when they have a chance, thank them as well. I do have official certificates that the Michigan Association of School Boards puts out. And I do want to recognize that the Michigan Association of School Boards provides a lot of coursework for board members to take. And there are a lot of school boards in the state that don't take advantage of those. And this is not a board that doesn't take advantage. All of our board members, other than our newest, have completed the entire 100 series. They're kind of set up like college classes. So there's a 100 series where you get a little intro to each of the topics, and then there's a 200 level, 300 level, and they actually earn different levels as they complete those. They also earn credit hours for going to conferences each year. And our board, every board member here, again, other than our newest, has been recognized for some level of completion, as well as our entire board has been recognized for all of them gaining certain levels of attainment. And that's just something, again, that this board has made an effort to do and that they feel is very important. And I think because of that, our students and our staff benefit because they truly do gain knowledge. And one of the things I've really worked hard to do during my time as superintendent is to never ask a board member to vote on something that they don't fully understand. And it's a lot easier to keep them educated when they've gone to those classes, and I can use terms that they know, and we can have discussions about things that they already know the basics about. So truly just want to put a thank you out there to them and ask that our community does the same. And I will pass these certificates down. Truly just a heartfelt thank you to all of our board members for all of their efforts. I will also add quickly, Mr. Burdette is already registered for the first 100 level class. The Washington Intermediate School District luckily is hosting one there, so he doesn't have to drive far to get there, but he was one of the first people in the county to be registered for it after being elected, and so we appreciate that effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the recognition. Thank you very much. Appreciate all you say, but obviously the heavy lifting is done by the staff, and we appreciate all that they do in support of the goals that the goals and the vision that we set. So, any other comments? All right. All right, we'll get into our strategic plan areas. First up in the area of communications and community engagement, we have public comments. Reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Yep, and then just push the green button.
Perfect. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. And then, sorry, I need to state my name.
Just say, yeah.
Okay. My name is Cheyenne Freilich. And then I am a student here at Milan High School. I'm a senior. I have been a part of the Milan High School Theater Department for the last 4 years. And I understand that later in the meeting will be a discussion regarding policy 5840. And as far as I understand, that policy conversation has been brought up because earlier in the year there was some discussion about the policy within the theater department, specifically during our recent production of Little Women, regarding outside students participating in extracurriculars here at Milan. Basically, I understand that there's a lot that goes into these policies and that this policy has been in place for many years. However, I'm just here to state my piece about, why we think that some changes could be made to this policy to allow students to participate in these extracurriculars. First of all, it's very important for our theater department at this point in time to have other people allowed to participate here. For example, in past shows, we have had missing roles that needed to be filled, and without those roles, it would have made our productions very hard to put on. In Legally Blonde, we had people drop out of the show, and we had to have people step up in order to take those roles, one of which was an outside student. In Little Women, we had I think we had 4 students who, we had to have fill roles, and that's simply because our numbers have been dwindling in the theater department in recent years. We are dwindling in crew members and cast members, even though we've had a lot of incoming freshmen and underclassmen come in, which we've been so grateful for them. Our crew especially is dwindling in numbers. I think we may have 10 or 15 people at minimum on crew right now, which not a great amount of people to put on a show, especially in a high school production. The students joining our program, honestly, they don't really have anywhere else to go. I feel as though a common misconception is these students joining our programs, they have other places to go, but they just want to come to Milan for whatever reason they may choose, and that's not exactly the case. These students don't have a lot of other places to go, and a lot of people don't feel it's fair that they don't, have extracurriculars and just places to go to. I also see a common argument against this is that some people are saying they're taking opportunities away from students who do attend Milan. And I would like to say, especially for theater, that's not necessarily the case. Theater is a collaborative environment, and it's not exactly competitive in that sense. I will just finish off by saying that I understand this policy has been placed for years, as I've stated before, but I hope that changes can be made to better the department.
Ms. Freilich? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Freilich. I appreciate it. Are there any other students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? Oops. Oops. Sorry. Hold on. Yeah, you're sorry. Oh my goodness.
Push the green button.
Yeah, make sure you have the green button
got it.
pushed.
Thank you for your time. I think you all got a copy of my email I sent. I am Josie Cooper's mother. She was one of the students that participated in Little Women this fall. She is a ninth grader at WTMC, and we're just asking that you reconsider the decision to allow her and other outside students to participate in the theater program. I think Cheyenne talked a little bit about how the situation came about, but I think a common misconception is that kids that go to charter school or families that choose a charter school don't care about the community. So I just want to tell you that we have been Milan community members for 14 years, and we value this community. They have given us a lot. We value the school and the children, and we understand that we're all here to make decisions that are best for the children in this community. Part of the reason that Josie chose to go to WTMC, she made this decision with our help, but it was based on her unique learning strengths and weaknesses and her social and mental health needs. I understand that it is your decision and you have the authority to determine the eligibility for these extracurriculars, but this is different than sports. It's not competitive. As Cheyenne said, it's a collaborative activity. And it's not governed by Michigan State High School Athletic Association. I know you already have, under the student groups, you already have an arrangement with the consortium, schools under the consortium. And I understand WTMC is a charter school, and so money flows a little bit differently. As I understand it, with the consortium schools, they're Milan students. The money comes here, and then you pay a portion to those consortium schools for educating those kids. And then my question to you is there a way that we could come up with an arrangement with WTMC or another program where you could be made whole in the same way, that even though the money is flowing to the charter school, could they then pay you the same amount that you might retain from, like you do from the consortium school? I am well aware of the challenges and the concerns of the relationships between public and charter schools. This isn't lost to me. However, I also see tremendous opportunity here, especially in the arts and the theater program, because as Cheyenne said, this is a program that needs bodies. Okay. With these kids love putting on huge productions, musicals, and that requires large amount of bodies, an ensemble for the dancing and the singing. And from my understanding, people have not been cut out from the shows. People audition, they've all been able to participate, so no one is being left out here. And in order to attract and develop healthy, vibrant programs, you need people. And I think you could even attract other students to the school by doing so. So that is my request to you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. We appreciate your advocacy. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Carissa Kofal. I'm also here on behalf of the theater department. I'm in a little different situation because my child, who participates in theater, is actually now enrolled in Milan High School. So I will speak to the benefits of allowing some students that are in your Milan district to participate, because it really does find a way in certain cases. I am a huge lover of the Milan Theater Department. I have been involved in Milan Theater since 2019, when my oldest participated through the consortium with Washtenaw International High School. Since COVID, the numbers at Milan Theater have dropped drastically. In every play, at some point, we have needed to seek outside students in order to fill roles. This is also in part due some to diversity. There are certain roles that only certain people can play, and we don't always have those students that want to participate in the theater in that way. Other cases, there's kids who aren't comfortable in certain roles, and we seek outside kids to bring those in to fulfill those roles and make a quality production. And I think I'm the one that emails you and sends y'all tickets to come watch our shows. So I would encourage you to come if you haven't. But if you have, our shows are quality. These kids are great. And when you allow outside students to come in and fill those roles, it allows us to be able to do those incredible productions. We had a cast, I think, of 15 for Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia, which I don't know if you've seen elsewhere. Some schools have 50 kids. And we did a bang up job. But allowing other students to come in and fill those roles really enhances the program for Milan and for our community. So that's really my angle. I think, like I said, theater's an all-in. There's no requirements. There's no competition. We don't get really any scholarships. I mean, it's here for the community and for the school and for the kids. And it's super fun. And I think really theater and the way the Milan Theater has been, the students, the staff that's there have always been accepting and encouraging. And I'd love to plead to the board to consider the same. It really does enhance our school, our production, and you may get another student like my child that says, you know what, I like these kids so much, I like the program so much, I probably should give this school a try as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kofal. Are there any others who'd like to address the board? Ms. Frohl, you can have another minute if you'd like, since.
For sure.
Okay.
Let me pull up my notes again.
Okay, sure.
I can just re-elaborate on
Okay.
some points. All right.
Yeah.
Right. I guess I'll just re-elaborate on my point. There was one I kind of rushed through. Going with the taking opportunities from other students. That was one I really wanted to elaborate on.
Oh,
I think I
yeah.
turned it off. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I'll elaborate on opportunities being taken from other students, as I know that was a common complaint within students that I have worked with and I've collaborated with. Theater is not competitive, as two other speakers have said, but it's very. The phrasing I like to use is people will only be cast in roles they deserve, and that is strictly how theater works. If we don't have students in our department that can't play certain roles because they don't have the ability to, then we will need to seek outside students, which we've done in the past. We've done many times in the past. And I don't think it's right to say, oh, these students are taking opportunities away, because they're not. They're adding more talent that we need in our community, and I think that is truly beneficial to our department. I think that's all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you. Are there any others who'd like to address the board? All right. Thank you for those comments this evening. As you're aware, we will be discussing that later on in the meeting. All right, next up, routine matters of approval. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 18th, 2024.
Moved by Gutierrez. Support by Pryor.
So moved and supported to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 18th, 2024. Are there any comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 18th, 2024. Ms. Murray?
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting closed session of December 18th, 2024.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Murray.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the special meeting closed session of December 18th, 2024. Just a reminder, those are in the envelopes in front of you. Are there any questions or concerns? It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the special meeting closed session of December 18th, 2024. Ms. Murray?
Okay. Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 18th, 2024.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Burdette.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 18th, 2024. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, Ms. Murray.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
and motion carries 7-0.
All right, the last up on the minutes, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of December 18th, 2024.
Moved by Murray.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of December 18th, 2024. Again, those were in the envelope. Any questions or concerns? Let's make sure I have collected all those. 1, 2, 3. Yep. All right. It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of December 18th, 2024. Ms. Murray?
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
and motion carries 7-0.
All right, our final item for routine approval is I need a motion to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Heike.
It's been moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Is there any questions, comments, discussion? Mr. Farrow?
I just want the board to be aware that I did have some questions on the latest check run. I did address those questions with Krista Hendricks. She responded very promptly. I have no additional questions on the check detail. And then I did have a few questions on the district credit cards. And again, those were promptly responded to by Krista Hendricks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. Any other questions or concerns? All right. Mr. Burdette, you've been able to access those?
Yes, I have.
All right. It's been moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Ms. Murray?
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0.
All right. That brings us to our finance and operations of our strategic plan, where we will be considering the 2024-2025 general fund budget amendment. It's concluded as an attachment B. Just a reminder with these budget amendments, this is a first reading. At the next meeting, we will vote to approve that amendment. This is a time for Mr. Gearbaugh and Ms. Hendricks to explain the amendment and the changes that are being made. And then we can ask them questions here or up until we make approval at our next meeting. So with that, we will have the first reading of our 2024-2025 general fund budget amendment. Ms. Hendricks.
Okay. Each of you should have a copy of the budget amendment at your place. Just a review of the document itself. The first column is the budget that you adopted in June, based on assumptions that were made for this school year. The second column is what I am proposing adjusting the budget to. And the third column is the change between the two between the original budget and the amended budget. If you look at the top portion of the form, It lists all of the revenues. I am anticipating an increase in our revenues of $2.2 million. That consists of changes in grant dollars, some state aid adjustments, donations that we've received, increases to the Act 18 monies that we received from the ISD. All of that combined will leave us with a budget of $32,218,540 in revenue. I'm also proposing an increase to our expenditures in the amount of $1,955,952. That is due to increased budgets for grants. So we had revenues and expenditures that basically wash each other out, but there's an increase on both sides. There were some changes to the health insurance. There's some staffing adjustments. At the time the June amendment was adopted, we did not have settled contracts for any of our negotiating groups. Those changes are reflected in this document. We started the beginning of this year with a fund balance of $5,007,730. We are anticipating, based on this amendment, of ending the year with a fund balance of $1,898,165, or a 5.37% fund balance. Please note that based on conversation, or based on board action prior to this amendment, the Harkness estate has become an undesignated fund balance. If you look at the second page of the document that I gave you, it breaks down in a little more detail some of the changes in both the revenues and expenditures. You'll see an offset with grants, revenues, and expenses of an increase of $1,937,380. There's a reduction to our pure pupil foundation, and that's not due to a loss of students. That is due to the assumption that was made at the beginning, at the adoption of the budget, of an increase of $200 per pupil, which was the middle of ground of three possible numbers that we were given. And then when all was said and done, there was a zero increase to our foundation allowance. So there is a decrease on this piece of paper, but it's not because of a loss of students. The third item listed is a reduction to the Section 147 UAAL. That pot of money is money that the state gives us to pay down the retirement rate. They give it to us on the 20th, and 5 days later we turn around and give it back to them. So it's a wash. Revenues and expenses are reflected on here also. There are a number of other items listed. If you have any questions on any of them, please feel free to ask. There's an increase in expenses, about $480,000 for staffing. That includes changes due to contract negotiations. It also includes some new staffing positions. We added some custodial positions. We added some general fund paraprofessionals. There's an additional specials teacher at the middle school that I didn't have in the original budget. And then I have a list of repairs that have taken place so far this year that have came out of the buildings and grounds budget. So, are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Hendricks. Are there questions? I guess one question, just so that we're all on the same page. So how come we don't have sinking fund dollars yet for these repairs. Is that correct?
No, we will not receive sinking fund dollars until about 12 months from now.
Okay.
It will show up initially on the July tax bills that Washtenaw residents receive. The Monroe piece of it won't show up until the winter tax bill. So we really won't see the majority of our sinking fund monies until next January, February.
So yeah, just so that everybody's, yeah, Mr. Gearbaum.
Yeah, just to simplify that, there won't be any sinking fund dollars in this fiscal year budget, period. I mean, all of them are coming after this fiscal year, so all of those repairs that you see listed required us to increase the budget for buildings and grounds, and these weren't things that were like, oh, it'd be nice to do that. These were things we had to do to keep the buildings functioning. This is the exact reason we went to the community for a sinking fund, because this is going to start happening regularly as our buildings get older. And so, obviously it was a great thing that our community supported the sinking fund, and we can see the need. Our budget this year is going to take a little bit of a hit, but then we'll be able to rebound and start paying for those things out of sinking fund dollars in the future.
It's also nice to see this $100,000 donation from FFA, Future Farmers of America. I always like to say that Milan is the longest continuous operating FFA chapter in the state of Michigan. I think we should take great pride in that, that we have always put that program forward for our students. So the fact that they're continuing to invest with the barn out back and have these dollars donated for items such as that is a great testament to the community. So
Probably should say, for the community members that don't know, we had an anonymous community member donate $100,000 to the FFA club. So it was a sizable donation, and that person has requested to stay anonymous. To be quite honest, I don't even know who it is. They did it through a funding mechanism that keeps their anonymity. So, but whoever it is, we greatly appreciate it. That club is going to thrive because of that.
And then I think Ms. Heike should also continue us to remind us about the timing of the state budgets and why we have to make these adjustments. So I will leave that to her to explain.
I do have a couple of questions. I just want to make sure that I understand. So when we see this $229,000 reduction in per pupil because of the zero increase in the foundation allowance, some of that I guess all of it, and then some gets made up in the increases in the MIPS burst funding. Is that right? Because that's how the state funded non-charter public schools this year, was moving money from retirement, or at least money we were required to pay into retirement, into our general fund.
They gave us additional funds through the MIPSers, through the retirement piece, to cover items that we would have normally covered out of general fund. They suggest school safety and mental health, but also the continuation of running programs. So yes, we did receive a sizable, I believe it's 147K is the state aid designation for it, to offset the loss of foundation money.
Okay. And then when we start looking at some of these, there's roughly, and this is just me rounding, like $350,000 in repairs. And maybe you can't answer this question, but would the vast majority of this qualify for sinking funds in the future?
Yes, I'm not going to say every single
No, I
one, because
understand, but-
there's very strict rules, but
Right.
the majority of these,
On their face, they feel like they would.
yes. And what it might mean sometimes is, instead of putting $70,000 into a very old boiler, we spend $120,000 and buy a new one.
Gotcha.
Because you got to be careful with repair versus replace, and there's a lot of rules in sinking fund. But honestly, we should be replacing, but we just need to not spend quite that much money right now when we don't have those sinking fund dollars yet. But yeah, I'm not going to say every single one on here would be, but yes, the strong majority of them would have been covered
or could be covered with sinking fund dollars.
Okay. And then what criteria, and you can answer this later if you need to, but what criteria are we going to use moving forward in this budget for what can we fix or what has to be fixed now under the general fund? Because we're still at this point, just so everyone knows, if we end the year at a 5.37% fund balance, it's under 5 when the state comes and takes over. So we are really hovering right on that line. And so what criteria are we going to use knowing that that money is coming next fiscal year to decide what we can wait for and what we need to fix now, given that hover around 5%?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it in two parts. First, specifically for the sinking fund, excuse me, any non-essential expense we just won't entertain. We have some things on the roofs and some things on facades of the buildings that I just met with a company, and they need to be done, but they're not critical. I mean, and I actually have that company. It's part of my superintendent's comments. I have that company putting together a 5-year plan for roofs and facades, and I want it rank ordered, and I want estimated costs so that the group that starts tackling the sinking fund knows what to do in year 1, what to do in year 2, what to do in year 3. And one of the things I asked those companies is, do any of those things need to be done before before this October to March? And they said, no, they can all wait. And that's the question I'm asking every partner that we work with. So that's part one, is anything that could be done with these dollars, we're kind of pushing pause as long as it doesn't drastically affect current operations. The second piece is I'll be going to all the departments with this budget and just saying we're on a critical need only expenditure process right now. Our teachers still need supplies, and there are still things we need to purchase. But there's a difference between need and want, right? And we all understand that in our household budgets too. And so we're going to take that shift from, covering needs and quite a bit of the wants to maybe we're just covering the needs for the next 3 or 4 months to really get a good handle on where we are. And, if things open up a little bit in May and the budget looks a little bit better, maybe we can tweak a few things then. But no, the belt needs to be tightened a notch. We've done it before. I've done it numerous times during my superintendency, and we'll get through it. The good thing is we're partway through the year. A lot of the big expenditures are done. There's not a ton of need out there right now, so there are things that we can pause.
Okay.
So.
And then I thought I saw an email about this, and I apologize. I went back looking for it and I couldn't find it. But remind me, does our health insurance run on a calendar year? So any increases that we would have in this school year and this budget have already been accounted for, and we know basically what they're going to be, absent some catastrophic?
Yes, but.
Okay. That was a good lawyer answer. I like that a lot.
It does run on a calendar year. I have all of the adjustments made in this budget. However, Lansing, in their wisdom, had a couple bills that they tried to push through during lame duck that could potentially impact how much we as a district have to pay by adjusting the hard cap.
Okay.
And those are, at this point, not signed by the governor, but I don't know. That's the unknown. I don't know how that's going to play out.
Okay.
So changes due to open enrollment are reflected. In some cases, I have put in the higher hard cap number.
Okay.
But we don't know if it's retro to January 1. We don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to be retro to January 1. We don't know if it's going to start March 31st or whatever that magic number is. That goes back to Krista's taking a wild guess on some things in this budget, and unfortunately, I have no choice.
No, that's fair. But I do want to be clear with the public. Krista is very good at what she does. So when she says wild guess, it's not really a wild guess. Like, there's a lot of thought and research that goes into it. I just want to make sure everyone's clear there. Okay, I think that was all of my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Farrell.
So for the board and for the community's knowledge, obviously there will be another budget amendment for us to consider. We will watch things closely between now and then. And while this budget amendment projects less than our goal of 10 to 12% in fund balance, I anticipate that we will fare better. And as Mr. Gearbaugh had indicated earlier, we will get somewhat of a reprieve as it relates to the sinking fund dollars. So, you know, should we go below that 10% threshold, you know, the sinking funds are going to help the district in the future. We can also potentially look at unassigning some of the assigned fund balance if necessary, if the board thinks that's appropriate. And Mr. Gearbaugh had already relayed, but I wanted to bring attention to it as well, that you know, part of the increase here was staff wages, and that was significant. And obviously, those various unions and those various groups are due those increases, but those were not anticipated at the time of the initial budget that we adopted. So I want the community to know that we are going to be very mindful. We're going to be watching things very closely, but this is what we are presenting at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Others? Yeah, Ms. Gutierrez.
I agree with Mr. Farrow that it's important for us to remember that this is our first reading and that there will be another amendment coming. There are just a couple things that I wanted to highlight for the public that were very positive for me to see. So one of those is that the number of per pupils that our original budget was based on is very close, I think within 5. To our benefit, we have 5 more than we based our initial pupil count on. And so, again, I know that many have said this, but I think it's really important, given much of the conversation that has happened in this boardroom about dwindling pupil counts, that we reinforce the messaging that the loss or the reduction in per pupil funding is not due to a loss of students based upon where we thought we would be. It's due to lack of a per pupil increase that we had all signs pointing to was going to happen. And so I think that's very positive for our district. And of course, it's something we continue to keep an eye on and keep on the top of our minds. But I was really glad to see when you pulled those numbers, Krista. That was really helpful. So thank you. There was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, the original budget that we had approved in June had a proposed kind of across the board 2% increase for our staff. And as Mr. Farrow noted, we had some very good, productive conversations with all of our union groups and came to final contracts that were in excess of that. And I think that we all felt comfortable that those were good uses of the budget that we had available, and that is a bit of the part here too where we see that increase in staffing. And so I just want to note that although that looks you know, like a large number, it's something that I think I personally and we voted and felt comfortable with because of the importance of continuing to support our staff in a very strong way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Any others? Just a couple things. I want to thank Mr. Farrow for his service as the treasurer, and he will remain on the finance committee. And obviously, Ms. Heike is well aware of the finances and is the treasurer and the chair of the finance committee. This board feels comfortable with monitoring those finances, and then we are definitely happy to have Mr. Burdett on board as well in regards to his financial background to continue to monitor this as well. So definitely appreciate all your guys' service in that regard. Like everybody stated, this has been a first reading. If there's any other questions, we can get those to Ms. Hendricks or Mr. Gearbaugh. We will vote on this at our next meeting. All right. Next up on the agenda, in the area of academics and programs, I need a motion to approve the use of previously board-approved sex education curriculum and materials for grade levels above the grade level for which the curriculum and materials were originally approved.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Pharaoh.
Moved by Heike, supported by Pharaoh, to approve the use of previously board-approved sex education curriculum and materials for grade levels above the grade level for which the curriculum and materials were originally approved. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes, thank you. I just want to clarify a couple of things. It's very important to understand that we are not approving any curriculum tonight that has not already been previously approved by the board. There's a very strict policy when it comes to sex education materials. They have to go through 2 public hearings and then come to the Board of Education after they're recommended by the Sex Education Advisory Board. Because we're not bringing any new materials tonight, we did not have to do the 2 community input sessions. We're not doing anything new. And I want to give a couple examples of why I'm bringing this resolution to the board so that everyone understands. A couple of years ago, the Sex Education Advisory Board brought a new curriculum through the process, and it's called Body Safety, and we do it at our youngest elementary schools. We've got a couple of elementary staff here who I think would tell you it's a phenomenal program and the kids gain a lot out of it. It's a very appropriately developed curriculum that talks about body safety and saying no and things that can happen and how you report them, but at a level that our youngest learners can handle. When we approved that curriculum, we approved it for use at Paddock. That was the way the resolution was voted on, which means when we move the second graders to Simons, we can't teach it to the second graders at Simons now because they're not at Paddock. So it's simple things like that. So a second one, a lot of our high school students take health early in their high school career. We, as a sex education advisory board, have decided that it would probably be a really good idea to do a quick review of some of those topics in their senior year right before they head off into the real world. And some of those topics we'd like to hit are consent. And what does consent mean? And what does no mean? You know, they all hear that, but they hear it very young in their high school career. And as they're headed off to college or the workforce, that's something we need to reiterate. So that's the type of thing that this resolution would allow. It doesn't allow anything new. It just says, hey, if you used it at second grade and it's appropriate to use it at 4th grade, you can. And so it just allows those vetted materials to be used in an upward, not in a downward motion. We cannot take anything that was approved for 4th grade and now use it in 2nd grade. That would require the full-blown process and everything involved in letting our community know about that. So I just wanted to be really clear and give you a couple of solid examples of why we're bringing this resolution to the board. It's really to kind of clean up some very specific resolutions that were passed previously that we need to kind of correct. And I can take any questions on that.
Any questions? Ms. Gutierrez.
Not a question. I'm so glad to see this come to us. You might remember that I was on the Sex Education Advisory Board before I joined the Board of Education. And I recall when the request for this consideration came to the Sex Education Advisory Board by our staff. This was not something that kind of dropped out of the sky. Our staff were saying to the Sex Education Advisory Board, you know, I'm seeing in our students, I'm hearing questions that this would really be great if we could reinforce this later in one's high school experience. And so I'm grateful to the Sex Education Advisory Board for really understanding that, putting together a recommendation and bringing it here to us. And I support that strongly.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Murray.
I just wanted to briefly echo that support and thanks for the SEEB team for this intentional use of the curriculum that they've adopted. Spiraling instructional content is a best practice, and I think it absolutely makes sense to deliver those materials at the age at which we decided, but then to continue to reinforce that as our curriculum and instructional time allows, I think is absolutely a right move for our students. So thank you again for that work.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Any others?
I just have a quick comment. I think that this is an important opportunity to remind our community when we are talking about sexual education. You've alluded to it, the steps that we have to take before a curriculum is approved. Because I know that there are, out in social media world, lots of theories and opinions about what gets taught and what doesn't get taught. But the reality is that everything has to go through this committee, and there are laws about who has to sit on the committee. You have to have clergy members from your community, you have to have staff, you have to have students, you have to have parents, you have to have professional health professionals. And so we don't just get to, pick people that view things the way we view them. The state says you have to have this person, this viewpoint represented and this viewpoint represented. And then if they offer any changes up, there has to be public hearings where parents can go and they can see the materials and they can hear why the change is being made, where the materials come from, and you can literally sit through and look at all of the materials yourself, and then it comes to the board. So while we didn't have to go through that whole process here for all the reasons that Brian has said, I think it's a good opportunity for people who watch this meeting later for a quick, primer on what we do have to do before we make any changes to that curriculum.
One additional, and you got almost all of them. With all of that, there's also the caveat that the majority of the Sex Education Advisory Board cannot be staff members. So when you add up when you add the clergy and the parents and the students and all of those, they have to outnumber the staff. So it's not even something that the staff could go and push something through without getting votes from all those other folks. So it's a pretty rigidly monitored system. And we survey our community, our students and our staff and our parents every 2 years, and then we compare what the students are telling us and what our parents are telling us, and we use that to guide our work. So this isn't like, hey, we think we should teach this. It's coming out of those surveys. So it's a very detailed process to make sure that we're teaching what our community wants us to teach to their children. And then again, the last thing, every parent has the option to opt their student out of any of those curriculums if they choose to do so. They have the right to come in and review the materials before they make the decision to opt out. There's just a lot of protections in case we do decide that as a whole something is appropriate and an individual parent says not for my kid. They have the right to do that. Thank you.
Any others? Ms. Gutierrez.
I'm sorry to keep chiming in, but to Ms. Heike's point, the other thing to mention is that all of the parents that are on the board, the Sex Education Advisory Board, those are randomly selected. I know, Brian, you, I think, actually draw marbles, if I'm not mistaken, to select. And having sat on that board, I can attest that there is quite a spectrum of opinions, and that when I was on the board, I know the board continues to spend a lot of time trying to find consensus and find middle ground. And so I think that the guidelines that the state has put in place for the constituency of that board is really quite balanced. And I appreciate you going through that tonight, Michelle. Thank you.
All right, any others? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the use of previously board-approved sex education curriculum and materials for grade levels above the grade level for which the curriculum and materials were originally approved. Ms. Murray.
Thank you. Murray, yes. Pryor?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Burdette?
Yes.
Farah?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heike?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up in the area of academics and programs, I need a motion to approve the newcomer literacy English language development course as presented in attachment C.
Moved by Murray.
Support by Pryor.
So moved and supported to approve the newcomer literacy English language development course as presented in attachment C. Mr. Gearbaugh.
I'm actually going to defer to Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, sir. We are proposing a course called the Newcomer Literacy English Language Development course, and it is for our newcomers, our EL students. They're currently being served by Jen Saylor, who is our EL interventionist, and we have them in an elective course with her called SRT, which you can kind of think of as like a study hall. It's a time where they can be assigned to a teacher for some time to do work, and she works on all the things listed here. In her work on the state boards and the local ISD board with other EL interventionists in the area, she's come to see that there's we can offer a course like this. Someone else is doing it. We thought it was a great idea. Give these students a little extra English credit. Essentially, it will count as some elective credits and their fourth year English. But if they're doing that work, we want to give them some credit to reflect on their transcript. So that's what the course outlines. And you have the proposal in front of you as to what it contains. I can entertain any questions.
So this is, I mean, no cost. I mean, this is,
Yeah, if there is any cost, it might be like some text, but we've been supporting that through Section 41 and Title III funds.
Okay.
So really no cost to the general fund.
okay.
Mr. Sisla?
Yeah, Ms. Murray.
I just want to offer my excitement and full support for this change. In a past life, I actually was an English language learner teacher in Georgia, and I was certified in that state in that type of instruction. And so I really do believe that this fits with the best practices of sheltered instruction for our newcomers and English language learners. And I'm really excited to see our district be responsive to that in terms of making sure that our high schoolers can still achieve English language credit, as opposed to just an elective as they're growing in their English learning. So thank you for that work.
Any others?
Mr. Sisla?
Yeah, Ms. Gutierrez.
Mr. McMahon, I just have one question. So later we'll be looking at graduation requirements, right? And so just so I'm understanding this correctly, they can earn English credit and English elective, but they still need to complete the required English courses as
Correct.
part of the graduation requirements. This doesn't substitute for any of those
Correct.
requirements.
Where it will likely serve as a true English credit is their fourth year. That'll be
Okay.
their English elective, but it'll be counted as English elective credits.
Sure. Okay. So other things like the
English 9, English 10,
English
English
9,
11,
English 9,
yep.
they still take those.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Good question. Anything else? All right, it's been moved and supported, to approve the newcomer literacy English language development course as presented in attachment C. Ms. Murray.
Thank you. Pryor,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
Barrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes, and motion carries 7-0.
All right. Next up, our strategic plan area of learning and environment of culture, as Ms. Gutierrez alluded to. I need a motion to approve the graduation requirements as detailed in attachment D.
Moved by Gutierrez.
Support by Farrow.
So moved and supported to approve the graduation requirements as detailed in attachment D. Mr. Gearbaugh.
I'll just briefly thank Mr. McMahon and Mr. Shin and the high school guidance office for working through this process. In the end, the reason we are coming to you to change the graduation requirements is 2 years ago we went from 7 hours a day at the high school to 6 hours a day at the high school. And that drops the number of credits that a high school student can earn in their 4-year career by 4 credits. Obviously, you want to allow a little bit of space there for students to explore and experiment and maybe not pass a class. This actually, even though we're dropping the number of credits required to graduate, it actually decreases by a small percentage the percentage of classes that a student can not pass and still graduate. So we tweak it down, but when you tweak it down, the percentages actually go a little bit more stringent. In order to do that, we really had to look at what were some of the things that we were requiring that maybe we can't require in a 6-hour day. And remember, there are a lot of positive reasons to go to a 6-hour day. And we've talked about all of those. So this is just one of those side effects that comes out of that. And, we were able to hold for 2 years because if we'd have made this change right at the time when we changed, then some of those students would have been able to graduate early because they had multiple years at 7, right? So we're now to the point where we're going to start to tip the scale to some students really struggling to get the credits because they can't earn as many. So that's why we're coming to you at this time with that, and I will turn it over to Mr. McMahon if he has any additional things to add.
Yeah, I would like to clarify that what we're changing to is actually towards the Michigan American curriculum. What we had before is a little above and beyond, because back when we created to be above and beyond, we actually had 8 hours a day, or the block schedule, the AB blocks, they're actually able to get even more credits than 7. So the changes that you'll see that are different than what's currently in place is there's 1 less credit in social studies and 1 less credit in science, and 3 is what the MMC requires. And then we're also dropping the elective credits down to 3 from 4, so that's 3 less credits, 21 overall compared to the current 24. I would also like to reiterate that, and there's one other reason I'll share, but this is also valuable for our students to explore career tech options, dual enrollment options, possibly some online course options because they're not restricted as much, and like place-based learning. Like it opens the door because we're trying to give our students some more authentic opportunities, and we're not constrained as much by the credit requirement, but we're still in line with the MMC, which is obviously very important. And a secondary piece of you guys approving this year is it also addresses the personal curriculum requirement that is now in place for the current 9th graders. So I think that's class of 28, I have that right? They have a requirement to get a half credit of personal finance, and we don't have any policy that reflects that, or it's not in the GAs or this guidance here. So we've added that piece on the back page. There's a paragraph that explains how we're going to address the personal finance credit.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you for the work. It's been moved and supported to approve the graduation requirements as detailed in attachment D. Miss Murray.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to call
Miss
me.
Ms.
Fine.
Murray.
Let's go. Sislo,
Yes.
Burdette,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika,
Yes.
Murray, yes. Pryor,
Yes.
and motion carries 7-0.
All right.
Just gonna call Mr. Sislo Incredible Hulk or something next time I call him on roll call.
Oh dear. All right. Next up in the area of learning environment of culture, we will have a discussion regarding policy 5840. It was included as attachment E, and I'm going to read that policy. It's a student group policy. It is the policy of the Board of Education that student groups be recognized as authorized school organizations only if they are approved by the school administration, sponsored by school-approved personnel, composed of members of the current student body, hold the majority of their meetings at school, and have established aims which are educational in nature. Membership in the organization or operation of any high school fraternity, sorority, or any other secret society as described by law is prohibited throughout the school district. In particular, the board shall not tolerate any type of gang or gang-related activity to occur on district property or while students are under the auspices of the board. So, as was detailed in public comment, I appreciate Ms. Froelich, Ms. Cooper, and Ms. Kofal, your advocacy in coming here to speak with us. As was stated, the board received an email to reconsider a decision by Mr. Gearbaugh in regards to student participation in the student group within the district. We referred that to our policy committee, our learning environment and culture committee, which is chaired by Ms. Heika, and I will let the policy committee share their recommendation with us in regards to that policy.
Thank you, Mr. Slow. So after a discussion, it was me, Sarah, Miss Murray, and Ms. Pryor. After a discussion, we have come to the conclusion that, and I'll let each member express their reasons, but we've come to the conclusion that we will recommend to the board not amending the policy. And so I'll start first from my reasons. And let me say first that, you know, I truly appreciate the position that you're in, and I empathize with you. I mean, we're former neighbors. I get it. I do. And I also want to say that while I sit on this board, I also appreciate and encourage families to find the right fit for them and their kids, right? I mean, I hope as a board member we have enough offerings here and we have enough programs and we have enough diversity that we can be everything to all people, but I understand that that's not always the case. And so I truly believe that each family has to go and find the fit that's best for them. And if you found that fit, I'm very happy for you. But unfortunately, I just don't see a path forward where we can amend this policy in such a way that we limit it to just the play.
I see that there are some MHSAA rules that may limit our ability to do it for sports, and so I don't think that sports is really my my huge concern. Although I will say that in the middle school in the last 2 years, we have received requests for um, students who did not attend Milan area schools but lived in the district to participate in middle school athletics. And middle school athletics are not controlled by MHSAA. So if we open the door here, I don't see how we draw the line just at the play. And so we could have to open the door for middle school athletics. But then also, I may have to open the door for robotics. I may have to open the door for FFA. There could be lots of other clubs that are not controlled by another governing body that then could I may have to open the door for. I just don't see how you can draw the line without, I'm not going to go so bold to say the floodgates are open, but this is not the first time we've received this type of a request. And so I'm a little concerned about just drawing the line at the play and what that means for other clubs here, and then particularly middle school athletics. And I hear the counter argument. You anticipated that I was going to say, well, what happens if a student, loses their spot? And while I appreciate that, there may be a perception that the theater is a little more inclusive and it isn't as competitive as some of maybe our athletics teams are. But one of you, and I don't remember which one, said very clearly, the spot goes to the best person who can take that spot. That's no different than the softball team. That's no different than the swim team. And so I do have concerns that if you have, when I think about Mamma Mia and what an incredible cast that was, what if the lead role went to someone who didn't attend these schools? What would other parents, if I was a parent whose child had tried out for that play and my child didn't get the role they wanted, that would be a reason for parents to come and say, wait, what's going on here? Why are we opening the door to everyone? The children who choose to be in this district have now lost an opportunity. And I see how whether you've lost the opportunity or not is totally in the eye of the beholder. I understand that, but I do think that even if you take out the inherent competitive nature from athletics, from theater, you still have that idea that I've got to try out and I really would like this role or that role, and there's someone ultimately that, just like there's someone who decides who plays the right field, there's someone who decides who gets this role and who gets that role. And then, and this is just a more, this is the lawyer in me, I'm also concerned that even if, because I know there has been some discussion about what if the parents pay a portion to cover the cost and they sign a waiver, would that be an appropriate way? I am still very concerned that our insurance policies would not provide coverage even with the waiver. Because even with a waiver, you can sign all the paperwork you want. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be sued, and we're not going to have to go to our insurance companies and ask them to defend us in the lawsuit. And I can see a scenario where the insurance company says, that's not what we're here for. That's great that you got a waiver, and ultimately you may not have to pay for any damages that are incurred, but we also don't have to provide the defense costs to get to that point to decide that you're not liable, and that in and of itself can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So there's a real money, insurance coverage that could lead to money concerns here. I also just, I don't know how we just make this new rule for just the play without opening up to the other clubs, and I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on the competitive nature of it. But those are the three main reasons that I just don't feel like I can recommend amending this policy at this time.
Mr. Sisler?
Ms. Pryor.
I also am of the opinion that we should not be amending the policy for all the reasons that Mrs. Heike stated. But to even take it a step further, I went through this scenario trying to think, how would we monitor this for this program, for other programs? because it'd have to be equal and fair across all of them. If we allow for one, we do have to allow for the others. Who would monitor it? We don't have like an athletic director who monitors those programs, who can be involved, who can't. My child was involved in theater very strongly. I think she may have participated with some of you. And so I do understand the competitive nature of that. And even though you may not have the kids now, there it may be in the future, and we can't. I would hate to let us have the other students join and then have to draw it back and say, well, we have too many outside students becoming involved in this. We don't have enough spots for the kids who go here. I could see how it could just snowball out of control without something that we can strongly monitor, and it's beyond the capacity of the school to monitor all those extracurricular programs. So I don't want to belabor all the things that she said, but for those same reasons, I also cannot recommend amending the policy.
Ms. Murray?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much to Ms. Freilich and Ms. Cooper and Ms. Koval for coming and speaking today. And most of you know that I also have a lengthy history with Milan Theater. And so this was a really difficult and honestly a little bit emotional for me to consider, because I intimately know our theater program here in Milan, both at the middle and the high school level, to be just beautifully inclusive. And it is absolutely no surprise to me to have students and, you know, supportive parents coming before the board and asking for the ability to be yet more inclusive. That is an absolute testimony to who you all are. And initially, my reaction was, yeah, the more the merrier. But one of the challenges that I regularly come up against as a board member is taking that step back and that 50,000-foot view that they coach us at MASB to take all the time, which is, again, taking that broad and that long view of, you know, okay, yes, this might be a real good for one program, but it's incumbent upon us to consider that long, you know, broader view of how it could impact other programs, not just at the high school, but as Ms. Heike mentioned, at our middle school programs. And so it's with those things in mind that I have to agree with my fellow committee members with a heavy heart. I have to agree with my fellow committee members, and I just completely appreciate and commend you for your desire to be inclusive. And I know, I've seen you all in auditions and performances. I know that, yes, it's competitive, but once the roles are cast, everyone steps in, everyone does a bang-up job on whatever role they were given. And it is truly a spirit of, you know, community collaboration, I think, Cheyenne, as you said. So please don't stop doing that. And, you know, as we, you know, look forward to, you know, future years, like the landscape of the public and charter and consortium partnerships is ever changing. I agree that at this particular moment, it's not appropriate to amend this particular policy. But personally, I'm not saying that I'm not open to down the road looking again at how our district relates or is interrelated with those other organizations who educate students in our community. So yes, I guess finally, I would say, you know, to the point of dwindling numbers, I can share that we had over 80 students try out at the middle school this year for our musical, and so we are burgeoning. There's a great level of interest. And just speaking from my own experience as a middle, high school, and college performer, programs do go through periods of ebb and flow of, you know, thin times and burgeoning times. And so, you know, it is going to be, I think, a challenge for MHS Productions looking forward, you know, to what shows can we do an amazing Mamma Mia level job with who we have right now. But that I know is something that the production team will rise to the occasion of, because you are all incredibly resourceful and just consummate professionals in what you do. So I'll be cheering for you, and you have my heart and my full support. I wish that I could feel good about making this particular change, but right now I just can't. So thank you again, though. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
Can
Miss
I
Leica.
add, Mr. Sislo, I don't think this is the end of the road. I think it's could be the beginning of a different conversation. And I'm thinking of some of the other models that we have, and I'm going to use sports models because those are the programs my kids participate in. But you know, we have a very vibrant swim club that isn't associated with the school, but uses the school's facilities to facilitate the club, right? And so I'm wondering if parents, and I would be willing to meet with you to see if there's a way to make this work, but I could see a scenario where you have something very similar that could still offer an opportunity for non-Milan area school students to participate. Maybe not, you know, maybe there's a third play that over the summer. You know what I'm saying? Something along those lines. And to your point, Mrs. Copel, you know, we have seen over the years that, again, swim club's what I'm used to. There are kids who come from all of the neighboring schools that swim at the swim club, and they start when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. And then when high school comes, they come here because that's where their friendships are, right? And so I can see a scenario where maybe some sort of theater club begins to burgeon, and I can't speak for the board, but maybe that's a, you know, by helping provide space, as long as it's within our insurance policies, you know, we can help in that way. You know, because I do think the schools are a center of the community, and so I think we're just gonna have to be a little more creative in the way that we get this done. Does that make sense?
Others? Mr. Burdett?
Mr. Sislo.
Yeah.
So as someone whose children are very, very heavily involved in the theater, you know, I do feel for all the parties who are negatively impacted by this, but I tend to agree with the other board members. I think it's just not the appropriate time to change the policy. I know that you had mentioned that, you know, theater is not competitive, and we need kids to come out. I agree with that in a sense, but there are many schools, even in Washtenaw County, that do go to the Sutton Foster Awards. They do Love Fest and MIFA, and they do the MSVOA musical theater competitions. I don't know if our theater is going to head in that direction, but if it does, now we are talking about competing for scholarships and competing for awards. And if we make this exception now, what's to stop other students from other districts to come in and challenge this policy as well? And we kind of go from being, you know, Milan High School Theater or Milan Area Schools Theater to being Milan Community Theater. And I just think that's not in the best interest for the kids in the district. So.
Thank you, Mr. Burdett.
Mrs.
Yeah, Mr. Farrell.
You know, I want to echo a lot what Ms. Murray said. Initially, I thought, sure, you know, this is easy. And I found that it's much more complex. And, you know, as a parent, I feel for you, and I know this is a tough situation. One of the analogies that I looked at and considered was I currently run a statewide association for soccer, and 90,000 kids that play soccer in the state of Michigan. And you're either a member or you're not a member. And as much as I want to provide our non-members benefits and insurance and things of that nature, if you're not a member, you don't get those benefits. And so at this time, WTMC is not a member. the analogy that I would use is, this charter school is just not a member. They're a charter school. They're not a public school. They're not a public school within the ISD. And so, while I initially thought this was kind of an easy fix, it isn't. And for that reason, I'm not going to support a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. Others? Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Mr. Sislo. First, I'd like to really thank all of our community members who stepped up and shared their perspective tonight, especially you, Cheyenne. I know it takes a lot of courage for anyone to come to that microphone. I've been there before, but especially for students, and I just really would commend you. I would say that you were incredibly convincing. You, I think, put together a very well thought out argument, and I think gave all of us a lot of food for thought, and I really appreciate that. I also appreciate, Mrs. Cooper, your willingness to think in very creative ways about, can we address some of the concerns that had been raised, right? Can we sign a waiver? Can we pay that difference? And Mrs. Kofal, I really appreciate you, first of all, for the tickets to the productions, because I am a very frequent patron and I appreciate it very much. Also bring my kiddos too, but I really appreciate your perspective in supporting our students across the board and in getting your kids involved in theater and then having them be here at Milan High School. I hear Mrs. Murray's kind of inner conflict on this, because I am so delighted that students in our community have many, many choices about where they spend their educational time that is best for them. I grew up in a really small town, much like Milan, but we didn't have any choices. There were no charter schools, there were no private schools, and I went to a great school, but I know it wasn't the best fit for every one of our students. And so I'm as a parent and as a community member, I think we're very lucky that we have so many opportunities here, and I'm glad, Josie, that you found one of those. Despite the fact that, Cheyenne, I think you were very convincing, and I really agree with you on so many of those points, I hear Mrs. Heike loud and clear on some of these really fundamental concerns that are at the 50,000-foot view of where the Board of Education needs to consider. And just like it's not our responsibility to get involved with one teacher's classroom, it's not our purview to get involved with one specific scenario, because we really have to think about the impact district-wide beyond this scenario in and of itself. So for those reasons, I do agree with the committee's recommendation. That being said, I'm delighted to hear the suggestion that Mrs. Heike made and Mr. Burdett circled back to, about the possibility of being very creative in thinking about how to address this need for opportunity in a way that will not open the door to kind of this slippery slope that we might be experiencing. And having a middle school theater kid myself, I know that those students are incredibly creative and their families are incredibly creative. And I have no doubt that with more conversation, this is something that we as a district and you as our stakeholders in the theater program can think through kind of the next set of iterations. And I appreciate, Mrs. Cooper, you doing that already, thinking through, okay, well, these are the challenges, can we do this? And I think Mrs. Heike and the committee raised kind of other challenges that I think are really fundamental. And perhaps now with that feedback, there can be another conversation about a creative solution to continue those opportunities. And so I'm really delighted to see both sides of this, and I appreciate all of your feedback. Thank you.
So, I mean, I think you can probably understand it's hard. It's difficult to say no, but I also know it's even more difficult to hear no. And I know it's difficult for this because I know you all. I know when your kids played soccer. So I mean, I value that, and I know they didn't choose soccer. So I, but I'm glad they tried, and this is yeah. I mean, I think it's all been said, but I understand it's going to be difficult for to hear that from us saying no to this. But I want to echo everybody. I appreciate everybody coming and speaking this evening. I appreciate the communication, and I appreciate the respect. I think it's been a respect. I feel that it's been a respectful dialogue, and we appreciate that as a board. Um, and I would look forward to some of those opportunities if it's possible. So, I thank you, and I know it's not what you wanted to hear. So, because I just want to make sure. I mean, we're not going to entertain any motion to change this policy. All right. Thank you. You're free to leave if you'd like, or you can stay for the meeting. I don't, I won't begrudge you if you'd like to leave. So, yeah.
But Krista, you have my.
All right, next up in the area of personnel and leadership, I asked Mr. Yerbaugh to put on the agenda going forward a superintendent selection process update. So I will provide that update at this time. I have spoken with union leadership for transportation and food services in regards to the selection process. We also, our committee, myself, Mr. Farrow, and Ms. Gutierrez met with the support staff this past Tuesday. Yeah, so I'll let them speak to that. It was a great meeting. We appreciate those who took their own time to attend that meeting and provide their feedback. We will be meeting with the Milan Education Association Union Committee this Friday, so we'll get their feedback in regards to the selection process. I do want to remind the entire community that we do have our Big Red Board Chat scheduled for next Wednesday, January 22nd from 6:30 to 8 at Simons Elementary. So definitely please attend that. I have reached out to our legal counsel at Troon in regards to the legalities and the process with that. So we'll be having a conversation with them soon in regards to the process. And then obviously we also have spoken to MASB with Mr. Morrell being at the evaluation. We do seek feedback and guidance from the MASB. The one thing I do also want to point out is that we will be sending out a Milan Area School Superintendent Selection Input Survey, hopefully by the end of this week. So in front of all of you, there's that survey that the committee put together. So I just ask you to look through that. If there's any changes that you think you might want to, or if you see any errors, let me know, and we will make those changes prior to sending that out. So like I said, we'd like to get this out by the end of the week. And this survey is going to be for students, parents, community, and staff. So we're going to seek the feedback of all of those stakeholder groups. We see the value in receiving feedback from all those groups. So again, students can fill this out, parents can fill this out, grandparents, community members, and then also staff. So you'll be able to identify what type of stakeholder you are if you prefer. Obviously, all the responses will be anonymous, but we will collate the responses and consider them as part of the selection process. The one thing I want to let you know about the survey is that it's going to be one of those rating scales, like it's going to be not important versus critically important. So there's like a 1 through 5. And we just really ask you to, obviously a lot of these things that you're going to be looking at as far as traits and skills and things like that, you may think, they're all important, but we really want you to tell us, which of these things do you think are critically important. So save those ratings for those top items, so that we can take those traits and consider them as we make this selection. So, like I said, we will get the survey out definitely by the end of the week, hopefully sooner, and then we will collect responses through that probably through the beginning of February, maybe into the first week of February, so that we can have the results back from the survey to look at our first board meeting in February, and again have an update where we're at in regards to the selection process. I don't know if Mr. Farrow or Ms. Gutierrez want to add any more, especially in regards to our conversation with the support staff.
Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Gutierrez.
I'd just like to really thank our support staff. Notably, we had representation from a variety of different job groups there. We had our paras there, we had our custodial staff there, we had our administrative supports there. We had all of our buildings represented, which I think was really wonderful. We had employees who were relatively new to the district and some employees who'd been in the district for decades. And so I think we got a good representation, and I really appreciate those staff who came and gave of their time after school to share some time with us and be so transparent in their communication, and to really take that time, and specifically to thank Yvette Smith, who I know was formative in getting that group pulled together. And I think she did a great job in making sure we had a good group of folks to represent the entity of that union, and I really am grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, and definitely the themes that came out of that, there was definitely wanted to continue to have somebody that supported the relationships within the school, and just a general level of support are very valued to those folks, and we heard that, and we will take that feedback as we move forward. So, yeah, Mr. Farrow.
Yeah, I do want to comment on the fact that it was good and polite conversation, and I wanted to add that we did offer to the folks that we have been meeting with the various groups to reach out to us individually if they want to as well. So our emails are on the website, and if individuals feel more comfortable talking to us individually, they can certainly reach out to us individually. So thank you.
Any questions on the superintendent selection process? All right. That brings us back to public comments. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board?
The survey, me as a staff member and as a parent, I can do it.
So you'll be able to do it once, but the survey will allow you to choose the roles that you have. So if you have multiple roles, you can choose on all those roles. Yep, absolutely. Good question. And any other comments or questions? All right. All right. That brings us to student board representative comments. Ms. Heike? Nothing. Did you enjoy your break? All right. Did can you speak for all the other students? Did they enjoy their break? All right. As long as they didn't have swim practice, right? Assistant superintendent comments, Mr. McMahon.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes.
Yeah, just two comments today. I want to share with you that we received a portion of a grant award from the ISD to cover 2 of our teachers to go to Orton Gillingham training, which is phonics literacy. Most of our interventionists have gone through the Orton Gillingham training, so we have 2 new ones at the middle school that are going to be able to receive this. It's pretty extensive. There's some options. There's like a hybrid option, an online option, in person. Just for context, the in-person option is 10 sessions over 30 hours of work, and it's like $2,000 per registration. So it was a really nice award to get. So we're excited that it's going to be Simona Kachut and Alexis Bordeaux, or Alex Bordeaux at the middle school are taking those, or we're honored with those certificates. So we're glad to have that. Also a grant update, 2 things. We submitted the 27K, which is a student loan repayment report that was submitted last week. It got approved today. That essentially we were able to give our teachers just under $9,000 in loan repayments. So we were happy to kind of get that officially approved and back to them for the report. And today I submitted the ESSER 3 or 11T programmatic report. So the state is, with all the COVID money, they've changed how they want to the programmatic reports, how you report how you spent the money, and then they're going to review that to make sure that you're above bar with all the things you did. So they sent out a survey that you could choose either ESSER 3 or 11T to respond. You could respond to either one, unless you were flagged for moderate or high risk on either one, then you had to respond to both. We were not on the list for moderate or high risk on either, so we chose 11T, which is the money we use to pay for math interventions at Paddock, for a year of our EL interventionists, the first year we ran that, and our McKinney-Vento social worker position, along with some summer school and some before and after school tutoring. So we just submitted the report today to say how we spent that, how we reported, how we shared community stakeholder input. We're expecting that, fingers crossed, to go through, and things will be done there. That's it for me.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. McMahon. That brings us to superintendent comments. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just a few things to share this evening. One, I want to continue to urge folks to look at all of our extracurriculars and keep an eye on the websites for all of the different programs and activities that we have for our students to be involved in. I also want to wish all of the students, hope they had a great winter break. They also have some long weekends coming up, so they don't have a real long stint here without a little break here and there. With staff, we do have some sad news. Sandy Boziak, who's one of our bus drivers, lost her father on Christmas Eve. Her husband, Greg Boziak, is also a bus driver, so kind of lost father and father-in-law. So our thoughts go out to that family. On December 17th, before break, didn't have a chance to announce this yet, we did do ALICE training for all of the staff who had not received it previously. So we did a couple-hour training, went through the whole protocol, did some scenario responses. I want to thank Officer Marshall for being there with me to help conduct that. I'm trying to remember, Krista, about 50 to 60 staff came for that training. So it's nice to get them all up to speed. Every year at opening day, we do a kind of a refresher for all of the people who have been here, but then it's important every year to do a whole full-blown training for those who have never had it before. So we did get that done. But before Christmas break, we also got Mr. Burdett orientated to the board. He had some good questions, and we look forward to his participation and have already seen him obviously doing his homework and being prepared and asking good questions and providing feedback. Our annual Rotary Christmas Basket program was a huge success this year. Just a reminder, it's Milan Rotary, Milan area schools, and Aid in Milan all get involved in this together. The schools do a canned food drive, non-perishable food drive, as well as the high school does a jar wars. The Milan Chamber, we email out requests for funding to all of the chamber members. They come through. Rotary helps purchase things with those funds that come in from those chamber members that maybe don't come in through our canned food drive, like laundry detergent and toothpaste and those types of things. It's just a really neat program that pulls a lot of entities together and allowed us to support approximately 70 Milan families with some extra needed food and cleaning supplies and things at the Christmas time. Last, and I mentioned this previously in the meeting, I did meet with the our roof and facade partner. I introduced Ryan to them. They will be coming back in about 4 or 5 weeks and meeting with Ryan and I, going over a full-blown 5-year plan. We've had a 5-year roof plan and a facade plan, but I really asked them to come and do a full evaluation of everything, let us know what needs to be repaired, what has the biggest concern, what needs to be tackled first, and to try and put some estimated costs to those as well. I'll be doing that same thing, or someone will be doing those same things with, our sidewalk person and our parking lot person, and trying to get all of those as we start to get ready to start that committee and bring everybody together to have discussions about how to most effectively use those sinking funds when they start to roll in. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerbaugh. Board member comments. I just want to start that these letters are awesome. So thank you to we got the young fives. We've got all kinds of stuff. So I appreciate the students sending this, and we even got pictures. So very cool. Thank you for recognizing us. It's cool to see. And I think did you mention like your kid's handwriting still kind of looks like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
To be very clear, I said my son.
But yeah, ditto. So, other board member comments, Miss Pryor.
Actually, I have a few tonight. I also want to say thank you to the students who sent us stuff. I'm just tickled about it. I can't wait to put it up on my board since my kiddos graduated. I have a very blank line in my kitchen. I want to remind everybody of the Big Red Board Chat. You'll probably hear this, and I've been telling everybody I can talk to in the community. It's been a long time since the school district has selected a superintendent, and I hear from community members often that they want more say in how our school operates and runs and more parental involvement. This is your chance. Please don't let it pass you by. It could be another 17 years before we pick a superintendent. That's wishful thinking, but so please attend on January 22nd and give the board give the committee your opinion. Something we talked about at the communication committee in December is, for anybody who wondered, we are still updating our website, so that is in progress. We hope to have a much more user-friendly functioning website here in the next few months, so you can easily find items and information about the district, so look out for that. I want to put a plug in for the GM-ACF Gala that is going to be happening on March 1st. Tickets are available now. If you aren't aware of this program, it is a community foundation that is set up to support things in Milan. And over the last several years, it has provided significant scholarships to our Milan students and provided grant funding for elementary fine arts programs, peer support groups, certain teacher initiatives, assistance with the FFA barn, lots and lots of support to the schools. If you are able to attend, please look on Facebook. There is a website to direct you where to buy tickets. And you'll be seeing signage and postcards around town. So please look into attending that. And again, I know that I've been to a few meetings since the election, but I want to again thank the community for electing me to this position. This is my first one as a seated elected person, so I just wanted to take that opportunity to say thank you again. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Mr. Burdett.
Thank you, Ms. Fissel. I just want to also thank the Paddock and Paddock Early Childhood Center for the cards. I often tend to present myself as a tough exterior, but I'm really just soft and squishy on the inside. So this warms my heart for sure. I did attend the superintendent evaluation training through the MASB last week. And it was great. While I was not able to participate in our last evaluation, I was able to observe and being able to kind of see all this, how it all fits together. It was an awesome experience, and I'm excited to actually participate in the next evaluation. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell.
Yeah, I want to echo thank you to the children for these awesome pictures, cards, notes. That really made my day. It was a long week of work, and I'm back in town, and it was crazy at work, and this just put a smile on my face, so thank you very much. I also want to do a shout out to Krista Hendricks. I know I drive you crazy, and I have lots of questions for you. And while I'm no longer the treasurer for the district, I am still on the committee. So you will
I
still
knew
get
that was coming.
you will still get questions from me. But putting these budget amendments is not an easy task. It's hard work. It's daunting. It can be very consuming, and she she puts all this together. Then she presents it to us, and then the board treasurer has many questions for her, and she has to take the time to respond. And she does it professionally. She does it promptly, and I just think it's really important to note just how fortunate we are to have Krista Hendricks as our director of finance. So thank you very much. The other thing I wanted to comment on is that there is an MASB Winter Institute for the board taking place in early February. So I have signed up for it. I'm sure some of you may also be signed up for it, but if you are not aware, there's one taking place in early February. And then with regard to the South and West Washtenaw Consortium, 10th graders who will be 11th graders next school year who are interested in participating must turn an application in by February 12th. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. Others? Ms. Heiko.
I also want to thank the young kids for all their artwork. I, like Ms. Pryor, don't get any kind of artwork like that anymore, and so it was a lot of fun to watch all of you learn how to spell your names, and it was just beautiful, and it put a smile on my face after a long day of work too. So thank you, everyone. I also want to echo what Mr. Sislo said earlier about the conversation we had with the play. I wish I had said this before they had left, but what I appreciated most about this conversation was how respectful it was. We don't always get that, and so I just wanted to thank all of the community members who were advocating for a change, just for, doing it respectfully and, not ways that have been done in the past. So thank you for that. The other thing I want to say is that on Saturday, the 18th, from 5 to 7, there's a free community dinner at Marble Memorial United Methodist Church. It's right on the park, right in town. It's a taco night, so come eat some tacos before you watch the next Lions game, and it's free to anyone in the community. It's a free meal. Come enjoy a nice warm place and some good food.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Heika. Others? Ms. Murray?
Thank you, Mr. Sislo. I will jump on the bandwagon of saying thank you for the thank yous. I had no idea what was in that envelope, and as soon as I opened it and all the pretty colors slipped out, it was just a very joyful envelope to open. And I am a person who struggles to get timely thank you notes sent to people who should get them, and so I want to also thank the students and the staff for reminding me to write my own Christmas thank yous. But truly, it is a skill, and I think sometimes a lost art to take that moment to write a thank you note to someone who has impacted you in some way or done something for you. So I want to thank our students and staff for engaging in that gratitude practice, and wish all of our staff and students and community a happy 2025. Doesn't seem like those are the right numbers in the year, but certainly hope that everybody had a safe and restful break. And I will just conclude tonight by reminding everyone to take care of yourselves. Clearly, I need to follow my own advice now, but things are going around, so please take care of yourselves, wash your hands, eat well, drink water, all the things, because we have a busy winter semester ahead of us, so please take care of yourselves and each other. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Gutierrez.
Mr. Sislo. On that note, I wasn't planning on mentioning this, but as your friendly epidemiologist on the board, if you're not feeling well and you take a COVID test, which we're all attuned to doing these days, and it's negative, don't believe that you're fully healthy, because we have a huge surge of flu A going around right now. You can get that tested at urgent care, but if you're not feeling well, I agree with Mrs. Murray, please take care of yourself. There are other illnesses other than COVID out there, we have come to remember. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I wanted to follow up on Mrs. Pryor's mention of the Big Red Board Chat. I don't know if the date and time was mentioned when you stated it, Cassie. So January 22nd at 6:30 at Simon's. This is your opportunity to come and chat with Andrew and Tom and I, who are the personnel committee, about this major decision that we have coming up that we certainly do not take lightly. As you have heard, we've been doing a lot of due diligence, speaking with our constituents, sending out this survey. Please do grab us at Kroger. If you don't want us to do the survey or come to the Big Red Board Chat, please grab us, give us your thoughts. I was just walking in to get my hair cut last week, and that very thing happened. When somebody was coming out of the Owl and I was going in to get my hair cut. And those are the kind of encounters that we're so lucky to have in a small town. I hope that you all know that we're accessible, that we're real people, that we live here in town, and please, please, please reach out to us with your feedback. I too would like to thank our youngest students for these thank yous. It's really nice to get a certificate, and that goes in my binder at home because I tend to be pretty organized about things, but these are going on my fridge. These are just so great, and I'll probably take a couple to my office too. So also I wanted to note that I think this comes from a place of really demonstrating and teaching kindness to our youngest learners. I know that this has been a major priority at Paddock, and that has bled through to our other schools. And so I just really would like to give kudos to our staff there for thinking through all the ways that this philosophy and choice can really be emulated. And so thank you to our students and staff for that. I too want to thank Krista for all of the work she does, but also thank you, Tom. I know that we rely on you. Those of us who are not so fiscally minded rely on your expertise and knowing that you're asking the right questions. And frankly, you had asked questions and Krista had answered them before I even had a chance to sit down and look at this. So being able to go into that with that feedback and the budget amendment really was very, very helpful. And so thank you so much. And then in the spirit of School Board Appreciation Month, I'd like to thank all of our board members tonight. We had a big meeting with assigning some new roles, and I'm glad that our most senior members of the board are willing to take on some of those leadership roles. And I've learned a lot from all of you, and I'm really grateful for that. And I look forward to another great year of service. So thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you. I will just continue the thank yous then. I do want to recognize our staff again because the meeting that we did have with the support staff, it was extremely valuable, even in addition to the conversation about a superintendent selection, just the stories that they shared and how their jobs have changed during this time. It was just good feedback to hear and be able to recognize them. I do want to thank Tom and Carrie for taking their time out of their days to participate in that as well. Also to Gabe for jumping right in, and I don't think I've heard board members excited to do evaluations. So that's because when we started, we didn't look forward to it because it was terrible. It was
our first meeting.
Yeah, it was a terrible process. So that's exciting. That's because this new process is much better. And I want to thank Cassie for going out and advertising the Big Red Board Chats. And also, speaking of GAMACF, I do want to remind our seniors, and you can remind your senior friends about the GMACF scholarships. There's a huge amount of money out there that this community has donated, and there's scholarships to be had, and we definitely want our students to apply for those. So make sure to be aware, watch your school announcements, school emails in regards to those scholarships, if you can use them for your future education. So any other comments? Ms. Heika.
It's just worth noting that not all of those scholarships are limited to high school seniors. If you are already in college, some of them are available to students from this area who are already in school. So don't forget to go look if you're watching.
Good point. All right. With that, we are adjourned at 9:09 p.m.